Welcome to ActiveMQ Essentials. I'm Jamie Goodyear. Today we're going to be introducing producer flow control. This is the mechanism that we use to prevent producer clients from overwhelming your broker. Up next. Right, let's dig into this. So ActiveMQ is an implementation of the JMS provider. We have producer clients that you can use to send messages into a destination, be it a topic or a queue, and we can support many clients that can be able to read or subscribe to those messages we have on our destinations. You can see our other videos to just go more into depth of how that works. We use KahaDB in general as our message persistence layer, so that way when we have a message come into the broker, it's persisted down to a disk and things can connect and come back and be able to grab those messages regardless if we had to restart that broker. Okay, so now we have a general idea of our system. Let's take a look at why we need producer flow control. When we're sending messages into a broker, the broker only has so much memory. Just think of that as being how much RAM you have available, and every one of those destinations we're using, they only got so much memory per each. Similarly, we only have so much storage for that broker, so when you have KahaDB, there's only so much disk space that we allocate to it. Then what happens if you have a producer that something goes wrong? They just start flooding your broker with messages. Well, what will end up happening is that you are going to run out of memory, you're going to run out of disk, and everything's going to stall. This is not good. So we have to have something that you can do to prevent that from happening. So how do we protect the broker? We use producer flow control. The whole idea is that this will engage whenever the broker's memory exceeds a particular limit, or we start running out of disk space for our storage unit. Okay, so how do we actually use this? Well, we have to go into the ActiveMQ broker configuration file, that XML you see in the conf folder, and we need to set a policy entry for both our topics and our queues. In general, what you'll want to do is set something for all of your topics and all of your queues. It's just a de facto, make sure we're good in all cases. But you can turn that off and you set it up individually per destination, so it's highly configurable. But in general, what I will end up usually doing is that when we set up particular queues, we'll go in and we'll say, hey, I want to have producer flow control set up on this destination, and I want to limit it to so many megabytes of messages. And if we exceed that, stop things so that way our consumers can catch up, or that we can recognize that something's going wrong and address it. Let's take a look at a demo on a terminal and see how this works in action. Before we start our demo, let's take a look what's on our terminals. So on the left-hand side, we have a simple terminal set up with Java 17 and a client that will allow us to produce messages onto a destination and consume them out. This is based upon the sample of the OpenWire Java client. That one's based for topics. We just modified it to work with queues. On the other terminal, we have installed ActiveMQ 6.1.7, and we are going to just use the standard configuration that you get directly from the kit. Now, with this kit, we have gone in and we have added to it the producer flow control setup for our topics and our queues. So in this demo, we're going to look at queues for simplicity, but what I want to show you here is the actual configuration portion. So let me put this a little bit higher on the screen. You can see here we have a policy entry for all queues. That's what that greater than symbol means. And we set up producer flow control is false. The reason we're doing it false right now is so I can show you the messages going into the broker, and then we're going to flip that back on to true so we can see this in action. We also set a memory limit of 1 megabyte. We can set that to a higher value, but it's good for just setting up this demo. So let's just exit out from our configuration, and we're going to run ActiveMQ locally here from the console, and we'll see that boot up in just a moment. So we see that 617 has started and is now available for us to use. Going back to our other terminal, I'm just going to build up my code. So this is just going to build up an OpenWire producer and consumer, and I'm going to use this to send in a bunch of messages to the broker. So this will quickly send 10,000 messages in. We see the broker took that, no problem. And we can run the consumer just to clean those up. Okay, so we've put messages in, we took the messages out, the broker is happy, all is good. But imagine if that was tens of thousands of more messages coming in every second, we could eventually overflow this broker. So let's shut down this broker. I'm going to go back to the configuration, and I'll turn on the syntax highlighting so we can see this a little easier. Let's go back down to that producer flow control entry, and I'm going to set that from false now to true. What this will do is it will enable PFC to operate on our destinations. So let's just put that in there and write out our configuration and restart our broker. So now the broker's up and running. When we run our producer, now what we'll see happen, I'm just going to clear this so we'll see this at the top of the screen. When we run this, what we should see is messages going into the broker, and then when we get to that 1 megabyte limit, it will stop the producer from sending anything else in. And here we go. We stop at about 2,000 messages were sent in, and we have stopped. This is exactly the behavior we want to see. We can see here on the broker, it says usage manager memory limit of about 1 megabyte was reached on our queue event. It has a size 809. Producers be throttled to the rate at which messages are removed from this destination to prevent flooding it, and see our documentation for more information. That's exactly what you want to see when you are running a broker and we have unknown number of producers or other groups or other departments are setting up and talking to your broker. You want to make sure that it's protected, that no one application can overrun your broker and end up having it shut down or run out of resources. And with that, you now know how to add producer flow control to your ActiveMQ broker. It's a really good idea to have this in place, even if the limits are set somewhat high. Having something that will prevent a rogue producer from flooding your broker and potentially having it run out of resources is really good to have that protection in play. With all that being said, though, it is time for us to remind you to like and subscribe to our channel and check out some of the notes below, links to ActiveMQ 6.1.7 and producer flow control. Have a great day. Cheers.